Hey everyone, Mystical Mark here. So this will be your intuitive astrology forecast for November 30th to December 6th of 2025. In this video, I will intuitively tune into my own higher self to get the overall energetic vibes of the major and minor aspects that will be occurring this week. Now, this is not an all signs or a sun sign forecast or anything like that. I don't do those because my guidance has been they're just simply not accurate. It's just, no. And I'm here, part of me doing this is I'm here to help awaken people to the fact that, you need to look at your whole chart. Okay, there's more to it than just the sun sign or whatever. All right, so what I do here, though, is called mundane astrology. So it's basically how the astrology affects us all on like a global scale. So that's like politically, economically, that kind of stuff. Okay, so we can see how it's generally affecting us in those ways. All right. Of course, if you do want a personal reading, of course, the best way to understand the astrology for you is with a personal reading and not just looking at a sun sign forecast or whatever, because like I said, that's way too watered down. Like, you're not getting anything out of that. I'm sorry. I'm just being blunt. But it's the case. But anyway, if you are looking for any kind of reading with me, I do offer personal readings. You can head on over to mysticalmark.ca. I have a website set up now, and it links over to my Ko-Fi shop for all of the readings. And I am offering until December 31st, 2025. If you use the code HOLIDAY, you get 50% off everything in my Ko-Fi shop. So there's astrology readings, there's a distance Reiki treatment, there is card readings, there's all of that there, including the 3-minute just a quickie reading, which is usually $10. You can now get it for $5. So if you want just to have a quick question or something like that, it's a good opportunity to, do that for incredibly cheap. So yeah, it'll be there until December 31st, of course. Again, I'm a one person, so if it once things sell out as I do readings and get them out, then I open it more up, so it'll keep going until the 31st. Okay, so if you see it's like sold out or something, just check back. It's just, I'm doing this myself, so I need time, okay? That's, but just, yeah. Okay, and of course, before we get into the charts here for this week, as I say at the beginning of all of my videos, my guidance has been and likely always will be, astrology is an energetic template conducive to certain things. Okay, the analogy they gave me, it's like a math formula. There's variables within that formula. We get to control the input to those variables, hence free will. All right, we all have free will. Okay, it's just how we're going to use these energies to create or to have experiences, etc. All right, that's how it works. And again, I get things through intuitively in this video. And I always say this, whatever comes through intuitively is always 100% subject to change. That goes for any intuitive reading, whether it comes from me or from anybody else. It doesn't matter. It is always subject to change because we have free will. Okay, so just be mindful of that. Any predictions I make in this or whatever, I'm getting them from when I'm recording this video. That's how it is likely to play out. Now, that can change, okay, because of free will. I just want to put that out there. Then you're like, Mark, but why do we even do this? Because so you have the awareness of what is coming from this point now, and to understand that you do have the power to change it if you wish. However, a lot of this stuff is global mundane stuff, so it's happening on a level of maybe which we can't directly control, but you can still try to get an understanding of what is coming and how to deal with it, and understand that that could in fact change as well. Okay, so yeah. All right, with all that being said, I think I've talked long enough. We'll get into the charts for this week. Let me jump in here. We're obviously going to start here on Sunday, November 30th. Just a couple things on the list for today, both surrounding Venus. So we're going to have on this day, so Venus will come into Sagittarius as shown on the chart here. However, before that happens, Venus will be entrine to Neptune there in Pisces. So let me just tune into this here. I can feel the energy at the end of the sign. It's like, it almost feels like an ending of like a finalization of something, like you watch the final episode of a series or something like that, and it's like this end. this feels like a very it's not quite an end. It feels like the end of not necessarily an end, but also like a new beginning. Okay, I'm being drawn to more of the energy of Scorpio, that idea of transformation, or the phoenix rising from the ashes. What has ended becomes a new beginning. Okay, that's what I feel with this, but it feels very, very positive. I've said this like many times before, through previous videos, and that a lot of what is going on, there's a huge underlying positive energy right now, even if we don't see it. Okay, even if we don't see it, there is a huge positive energy that is helping us at the moment. Okay, and we probably don't see it, but it is there, and I can feel it every time I do these fucking videos. I can feel it every time. Okay, so I just need to reiterate that it is there. Part of that positivity I feel is coming. I feel very much almost like coming from that Neptunian. Like there's a hidden force that is helping, and I'm getting now the idea of that Venus with the people that are helping to transform. But it's like I'm getting like an ending and a new beginning. But it feels very, very, very positive. Okay. That's okay. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let me just tune into now this Venus coming into Sagittarius. It feels very busy. Like a lot of people trying to what I kind of see in this, or what I'm getting, is like it's like a room, or it's full of like a lot of people, and they're trying to people trying to get through and talk, and it's very busy. Is there anything else to this? Just what I feel and what I get is just a lot going on, and it obviously is dealing with people, and a lot going on. It feels positive. It's just I almost feel like that Christmassy vibe of that holiday rush, or a rushing going around or whatever. And I'm not just saying this because it is the holidays, it is Christmas, but that's I don't know, the analogy that I get, because you have to remember this is mundane astrology. It's happening at a higher level. This isn't like I'm telling you you're going to go to the store and it's going to be busy. That's a given fact. What I'm getting with this is happening at on that global level, whether it's politically, economically, or whatever. That's what I feel is there's a lot of busy with people in those areas. I want to say higher areas, but things that maybe we don't necessarily see, but there's a lot of busyness with people, but it feels very positive. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that, because that's all I'm getting with that. I'm just going to be saying the same thing over and over again if I try to keep going. So let's move on to Monday, December 1st here. So on this day, we're going to have the Sun here in sesqui-square to Jupiter retrograde. Okay, a sesqui-square is like a square and a half, so kind of like a super square. This is something that really can't be swept under the rug any longer. It needs to be faced and dealt with. Okay, Sun sesqui-square Jupiter. Initially, immediately, I get this idea of expansion. We're dealing with the Sun in Sagittarius, and also the ruler of Sagittarius, Jupiter, in Cancer there. But there's this highlighted, more Jupiterian, Sagittarian kind of an energy that exists. It's really pushing for something to come back. I've said this before with Jupiter retrograde, when Jupiter initially went retrograde, that it's like something is coming back to us. But it's the word I get is peace. Peace. I feel like there's a strong benevolence with this Jupiter energy, not just because it's part of that. It's like this very strong positive aspect of Jupiter that is really seriously being used in the way that it's supposed to be used now. Okay? And the idea with the Sun in Sagittarius, I feel like this more globalness. And so this idea of, like I said, something is coming back to us. It feels like the idea of peace. Now, whether this I honestly don't know what's going to specifically happen. What I get is like political figures like talking work. I get a positive working things out, honestly. I mean, that's a first. But and I've said this before too, because look at this. The Sun is building in square to the nodes here as well. North Node and Pisces. And I've said this about North Node and Pisces before, is that we're moving in an unknown direction, but it feels very positive, even if we haven't been there before, and it's almost like we're scared to go there, but we need to go there. There's nothing to fear. Just because we haven't known it or don't understand it doesn't mean we shouldn't go there, because that's ultimately what is best for us, is that North Node in Pisces. Even if we don't necessarily know what it is, it's for our highest good at this point. And I feel very much with that Jupiter retrograde that there is something that is coming back. What I'm hearing is nurturing peace. So, because I was kind of in my mind thinking about, Jupiter's in Cancer. Cancer, nurturing peace is what I got with that, in relation to that. Okay, I'm feeling to just kind of end it there. We're also going to have Mars in conjunction to Juno as well on this day. What I feel is there's action being taken towards certain partnerships, commitments. What I feel more with this is commitments. But there's this feels like leadership, because again, we're dealing with Sagittarius, we're dealing with global stuff, so this feels like leaderships of certain countries in terms of action towards commitments, etc., is what this really feels like to me. Now, I'm being drawn to say that just because the conjunction happens on this day doesn't mean that this specifically happens on this day. There's leeway before and after this, where this energy is building and waning, and things can still happen within that time frame. And of course, that happens with all of these aspects. So it's not necessarily specific just to one day. That's when the energy peaks, of course, or where it's maybe most heightened, but that energy still exists before and after to an extent. All right, as it builds and wanes, like I said. Okay. But yeah, it just feels like taking action towards certain commitments. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that then for Monday. Let's move on to Tuesday here, the 2nd. And on this day, we're just going to have Venus here in sextile to Pluto. Okay, Venus has moved ahead a bit because I have the chart later in the day. However, this happens looks like, 3:06 a.m. Central. So that's why she's moved ahead there. But there's this sextile here to Pluto. What I get with this is I almost feel like a change up of global leaders, or like a change of, again, with Pluto and Aquarius, there's a transformation and change. And with Venus and Sagittarius, that people aspect in terms of the globalness, but I feel like there's a change. It may not feel like actual, maybe physical changes of people, but a change of how people are as leaders. It could be, it doesn't, I was going to say that doesn't feel like it. It feels like a change of how people are as leaders on the political field here. Okay, I'm just kind of being told to just leave it at that for that aspect, so I will, and that is the only thing for Tuesday. So let's move on to Wednesday, then the 3rd. Okay, again, I'm being reminded that this not specific on this day, but is a transit that is happening this week, and so the energy is affecting for this week, whether it's before and after this point. Wednesday the 3rd, there is nothing major happening. Let's move on to Thursday the 4th. Of course, this is when we're going to have this full moon in Gemini. And right overnight into the next day, the sun is going to square the nodes. So there's basically a grand cross happening here with the sun, the moon, and the north and south node. Okay, so we can see part of it here, this square, the opposition, and then if we go to the moon, we can see these squares and the opposition. Okay, so with this full moon, it feels like there's a release happening to let go of what feels like a negative energy. And ultimately, the initial thing that I got with this is a positive new beginning with that letting go, with that release of that negativity. I feel like with that new beginning and that new direction is related to that, those squares to the nodes. Okay, so this is very much a push, and I've said this before, squares and oppositions aren't bad. Oppositions seek balance. A square is pushing for resolution for something, to take action towards something. This can be positive. Squares and oppositions can be positive. You can take positive action to balance something out and have the outcome be positive, of course. You can have a square to take action to something that is positive. Take positive action and do positive things to enact change or take appropriate action to stuff, right? This does not have to be negative. And anyone that says that this is only a negative aspect is a fucking moron. And they have no idea what the hell that they're talking about. I'm just going to honestly say it like that because it pisses me off that people don't understand that just because it's a square does not mean that it's bad. It's just a type of aspect, a type of energy. It's how you use it. Okay? It doesn't have to be bad at all. Trines, sextiles that are usually more positive, they're just easy energies because they're more like lackadaisical. It's like, but with squares and oppositions, it kind of pushes you to do something. But that can be a very positive thing. It can be a very positive thing. Remember, it's how that we use this energy. Remember that, okay? And this feels, okay, let's get back to this full moon here now. This feels very positive. It feels like a positive new beginning in some way. It feels more political. It feels more political as a positive new beginning. Again, with its sun in Sagittarius. And I feel like it's relating to maybe I'm trying to get what the Gemini part of this. I get two-faced. It's a release of like this two-faced energy. And I don't mean that as like an alternate persona in a positive way. I mean that as like it's release of this negative part and it being two-faced or being, whatever, covering something up or something through a false persona. I feel like it's no longer being two-faced. It's like there's an aspect maybe of clarity that comes through with this. Okay, that's another aspect of this Gemini stuff that is coming through. There's an aspect of clarity, and that releases this two-faced kind of behavior, but ultimately I feel as there's a positive, it's a positive growth, positive new beginning. Like I said. Okay, I'm not going to say any more to this because I'm just going to be a broken record at that point. We're also going to have Mercury in quincunx to Chiron retrograde as well on this day. This actually feels a lot more positive than I was expecting it to feel. Again, there's an underlying positive energy that is helping with all of this. What it feels like is there's some type of a communication or awareness that is willing to really push for change and transformation regarding this Chiron energy where we've been hurt, wounded, etc. And it feels like countrywide sovereignty is what it feels like. And even though these energies are technically different, and there's a quincunx, so there's like a frustration here, I'm not feeling it. It feels like more like, okay, we're willing now to deal with this, is what it feels like to me. We're willing now to deal with this, to listen to what we hear, what's been said. We need to ultimately, through that communication or that awareness, ultimately transform and change and heal it. Okay? It feels like something that is frustrating, but in a way that it's like, okay, we need to deal with this. We need to look at finding an actual it feels like a real solution to the problem. It doesn't feel like what we typically see in politics. It feels like an actual real solution to a problem in some way through this. Like I said, this initially feels more positive than what I was expecting with the quincunx type of an energy. But that is what I feel. Okay, that's it for Thursday. Let's move on to Friday here. And of course, this is when we're going to have this exact square, which is the sun square the nodes. Okay. What I really strongly feel with this is this positive movement forward with this North Node in Pisces, and this South Node in Virgo feels very negative to me. It feels very old, very stressed, very old practical things that are just, we thought they were practical, but they're simply not. It's like this old, and it feels like it's surrounding, maybe we know certain details now, and through that it allows us to let go. Now that we see the details, we have to let go of what we once knew, because it almost feels like it was a lie, or it was false, or it was like something like that. I'm getting drawn to this expansiveness with the sun in Sagittarius, that expansiveness into new directions as a global community, as a world, in that sense. With that square to the North Node in Pisces, follow the new path. Follow the unknown new path that is leading us to places which we can't even begin to imagine yet in terms of where we are going. Okay? That's what I'm going to say about that. Now, we're also going to have Mars in trine to Chiron on this day. What I initially got was there was this part of relating to that sun square the nodes as action towards healing. It's a very positive, light energy, and towards taking that action towards healing. And what I get is sovereignty. Sovereignty, independence, etc. Alright, that's it for Friday the 5th. Let's move on to Saturday the 6th. Saturday the 6th, we're going to have Mercury here in trine to Jupiter retrograde. Again, I feel a very positive underlying energy here that is using the Scorpio energy to transform, but it's transforming through communication, awareness, through that act of communicating to the right people that can do the right things to transform and make change is what I feel with that. And ultimately to bring something back. What I get with that Jupiter, it's to bring something back. Now this time it doesn't feel like it's peace, but it still feels very positive. So there could be more, like what I'm getting is we're dealing with Jupiter and Sagittarius energy. There's multiple things with this. So it's not just one thing that's being brought back with this. There's multiple different avenues, multiple different things. Okay, and through talking and discussing about kind of these negative things that have occurred or whatever, we begin to transform and bring back that which is positive for us. Something is coming back, and it feels like it's something that we haven't had for a very, 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 very long time. In fact, there's a lot of us alive today that may not have even have experienced these things in our lifetimes. Okay? That's the kind of stuff that is coming back. Alright. The other thing that is happening is we're going to have Venus here in sesqui-square to Chiron, and I get that this is kind of what I feel alongside with that Mercury, etc., in terms of the people aspect of this. What I feel is that bustle of that Venus and Sagittarius that I talked about already. But through that busyness, it's enacting aspects of change, of positive expansion, growth, etc., through which is the healing process. Chiron is retrograde. It's going over these old things to bring them up ultimately, in a sense, to be healed, and it brings about that healing process. And there is people that are actually helping with this now. That's it. That's it. Let me bring it back to me. Of course, at the end, I usually do just a quick tune in for the overall energy of the week. So let me just see. What do we got? Ultimately, what I feel is that Grand Cross, that full moon Grand Cross with the nodal axis, and that positive new direction that is building here. Is with what I feel is the highlighted energy for this week. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at that. If you have made it this far in the video, please leave a purple heart in the comments so I know you're a real one, and I hope to see you all in next week's video. Take care, everyone. Bye.